it's really a ridiculous state. To think in the height of the infection that we are working on convincing and forcing, in many cases, our teachers to go back to the classroom, and our students who have parents who rely on school as part of their health care, to send their children back to school even though they're in danger. And I think everyone here tonight is clear that the state should not coerce these school districts into opening, but I feel that that's going on. And I really believe that at a minimum, the first 9 weeks should be conducted virtually until we get this under control. And, you know, that's just what we're seeing. And our numbers here in Hillsborough County are awful. And I know you're going to hear from Senator Berman, and I think her numbers down there are probably worse than mine. But those are my concerns. And I'm really upset that we have a governor that is so busy drinking, you know, the national poisonous Kool-Aid, that he's willing to you know, he's willing to sacrifice the lives of many of our Black and brown community and our seniors for the sake of the economy. When you put politics over people, then we've created a real toxic environment here. And I'm very worried about what will happen moving forward. But I'm here to fight, and I'm here to voice my opinion, and I'm here to let you know that we as the Senate Democrats have been fighting and sending letters and holding press conferences talking about a state that was much too late to respond to this pandemic. And with that, I will stop, and I will thank you all for listening. Just know that we as the Senate Democrats are fighting hard for you every single day.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. I look forward to hearing more from you a little bit later. Next up, we have Senator Lori Berman, who represents Florida Senate District 31. She was born in New York City, moved to the state of Florida in 1958, and later attended Tufts University, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in 1980. Afterwards, she attended the George Washington University Law School, graduating in 1983. She returned to Florida and years later attended the University of Miami Law School, where she received a Master of Laws with a specialty in estate planning in 2002. Senator Berman is very happy to have you with us once again. Please take the floor. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, and my mom would be so proud to hear those credentials, so thank you for introducing me. And I'm so happy to be here in front of all of you and with my good friend, Senator Janet Cruz. You know, both of us sit on the Education Committee, so we've had a pretty good bird's eye view of what's going on in the state of Florida in education. And we know that there is a statewide effort to harm our traditional public schools. And I think that this opening is also a continuation and a part of that. I mean, and it even, you see it on the national level, you know, you see it with the president and with Betsy DeVos. And now we've got it down here, and we have our own version of Betsy DeVos. We have Richard Corcoran as the head of the Department of Education. And we, Senator Cruz and I had the opportunity to work with him when he was in the House. And so we know exactly where he's coming from. And he's not doing anything with the idea of helping public education. This is all a planned effort to make it harder. And there's just no reasonable, you know, the fact that he issued that order saying that they need to open brick and mortar schools in August is just insane. There's just no basis for doing it on a healthcare basis. Interestingly, they put in that order saying that if your healthcare department doesn't think it's a good idea, you can get out of it. I mean, we had an issue here in Palm Beach County where our healthcare provider, Dr. Alonso, met with the schools and said, I don't think it's a good idea. And then there was a little bit of a pushback from Tallahassee saying, you know, maybe you guys shouldn't be, the healthcare department shouldn't be giving that information out. Dr. Alonso says she's able to give the information out, and she still feels like it's not appropriate to be opening schools. And I agree with her. You know, my colleague talked about the school setup. They're just not made for social distancing. And she talked about the buses. How are we going to get people there? What are we going to do with the lunchroom? How do you feed the children? How does everybody do it? And, you know, some of the medical lies that we're hearing about children not getting the disease and not being home, those aren't true. The things I've heard say that once you're in middle school or high school, you're going to transmit it just the same as anybody else. So, you know, let's do things, you know, education's all about learning and science and taking science into account. It would be nice if when we made the decision about how our schools are going to open, that we looked at the science about it. Unfortunately, right now here in our state, I don't see that happening. Interestingly, I think one of the most telling things we saw in the last week or so was our senator, former Governor Scott, saying that he would not send his own grandchildren to school. You know, so if we're hearing that from our leadership, how can they be pushing other people to send children to school? So we are there with you. We are going to be out there fighting and saying this is not okay. We don't, you know, and we have other examples. Look at the country of Israel. They had the disease under control. They opened their schools and the disease is back now out of control. So there's examples. So why would we, in a state that had the highest number of deaths that we've ever had today, over 200 people died in the state of Florida from COVID today, why are we even thinking about doing anything in terms of opening schools? I really don't understand it, but you know that we'll be here, we'll be on your side, we'll be your voice, and we'll be doing everything we can to protect you and to protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Berman. So now we get to the fun part. We have some speakers from our community who we're very happy to hear from. And these are a combination of parents, teachers, support staff, and they're going to share their issues and concern about the reopening. And Afifa, there's something on the screen. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's supposed to be on the screen. Can you take it down? So we're going to start with Lehman Fields Jr., who's a custodial coordinator with Palm Beach County School District. So Lehman, you have the floor. And what we're going to do too is we're going to take 2 or 3, and then we're going to go to Senator Berman and Cruz and hear from them. So we're going to take 3 people and then go. So Lehman, you go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Alfonso, and to Senator Cruz and Berman. Thank you for being on. I'm going to make a quick correction. I'm not a coordinator, but thank you for speaking that into the present.
We're speaking into existence, Clement.
Yes.
We're speaking into existence.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I'm a 4th person at a elementary school in Palm Beach County. And one of my concerns with school reopening too soon is I think that we're not open. From the custodial standpoint, I don't think we need better training with being certified to handle COVID-19, certified training. And also, you know, I guess I'm at a loss of words with Governor DeSantis trying to open school so quickly, because also as a parent, my wife and I, we decided not to send our kids to school if it does open. But just from a working standpoint, you know, I feel that state government, DeSantis and the Department of Education should not get involved with local governments opening up the schools. I think our local governments have better say-so of what's going on within their districts and within their counties than the state does. And that put us at harm because they don't know what's going on up in Tallahassee on the ground. They're not going through what we go through. They don't have to wake up. And I do agree, if they're not going to open the state capitol and the White House to have visitors, they should not reopen school using our kids, personally, this is my feeling, using our kids as guinea pigs to see how this disease is spreaded and how we can maintain it. But I do, those are my thoughts. And from a lot of my constituents, my custodian brothers and sisters, you know, our fear is the spread of COVID throughout our industry. You know, not having, possibly running out of face masks, gloves, cleaning supplies because we're not funded. So that is a concern we have. And also not having hazard pay. You know, we put ourselves at risk every day. Before COVID came out, we were putting ourselves at risk. And now that COVID is present, you know, that's more of a factor of us not getting hazard pay, you know, because we have a lot of people that are over 50 working within this industry, and they are afraid to return back to it. So
I'd like to speak to that and tell you that I hear you. And I watch our school systems that cannot even control an outbreak of lice in a classroom. And how in the world are we going to expect you guys, especially the custodial services, on the front line of trying to keep all of this under control? I have a question for you, and that is, under normal circumstances, do you have the chemicals and the supplies that you need on a regular basis now?
Yes, on a normal circumstance, yes, we have the chemicals, the gloves that are needed, but with the increase in cleaning, the concern is possibly running out of the supplies.
Okay, and can you speak to, you know, I spoke to a high school teacher that said they didn't have soap or paper towels in the bathrooms. Is that the case in your school as well?
That's not the case in my school, but in the school that I'm at, because I stay on top of it as a foreperson. But I have heard of schools where they don't have the adequate supplies of hand soap and paper towels and toilet paper. I'm not sure if it's a budget thing or if it's a supervisory thing, making sure that your inventory is in stock. But yes, I have heard that.
Well, and I want you to know that I applaud you for making the decision to keep your children safe and at home. The question is, of course, if someone like you, if they tell you that you must go back to school or be furloughed, you know, and you make the decision to go back because you have to support your family, then you're coming home and putting them at risk rather than keeping them safe. So the problems are multiplicative here. And especially in our minority communities, I see where folks live in multi-generational households. So you come home and you may be young and healthy, but you bring it home to grandma or grandpa or an elderly parent, and that's a very dangerous situation. And we're seeing the numbers rise now for children and infections as well. So thanks for that perspective. I appreciate what you had to say.
You're welcome.
I also have a question for you. And I'm glad you're in Palm Beach County and that you're helping us out. I really appreciate that. Has anyone given you any advice yet about any extra cleaning protocols that you will need to have in place because of COVID?
We've gotten some basic training, but personally, I feel that it should be deeper than that. I think we should I think all custodians should become certified COVID-19 cleaners, if that makes sense. I know that there's programs out there where you become certified as a cleaner, and I think that's the type of training we should go through.
And have they bought any new or special equipment that specifically addresses COVID? Like, I understand there's blowers and things that you can use.
Within our district, they have a electrostatic cleaner.
Oh, good.
I'm not sure if it's going to be for all schools, but we do have that so far to help us out with our daily cleaning regimen.
Great, thank you. And I think we need to, that's a big issue, and I'm glad you brought it up. And I think we need to keep raising those kinds of issues before the school board, that, you know, this is a whole new thing that we are dealing with. We have never dealt with this before, and it requires changes from, you know, every single step having to do with the students. And we've really got to examine from the minute before a student gets on a school bus till everybody goes home at the end of the day, what are the interactions and how can we make everybody safer? So I'm glad you raised that issue for us.
Okay, and next we have Ms. Phyllis LaFleur, who's the ASPE member president for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Ms. LaFleur, very happy to have you. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator Cruz and Berman. I know that you all are aware of the numbers that we have in Miami-Dade County, and our numbers, I think, are higher than the most. Our full service department, they never stopped working from day one. They've been serving kids throughout the county that's doing performing home schools. And we have had so many cases in our food service department. Also, our custodial workers have been working throughout this whole pandemic. Yes, we do have a training, and we have had a COVID training, a certification training. I make sure that we did that prior. I think it was in March that we held the training here. But we still have a lot of cases. I get calls every day that our custodians are coming up with COVID. I don't know if they're, coming up because we don't have kids in school right now. So they may be, getting it from the outside. But it have been passing through Miami-Dade County schools. And I have been getting them off from work so they could quarantine for 14 days and be tested. But we're having a lot of concerns because we're so short in custodians it's bad. We have one custodian that starts at 6 a.m. in the morning and works by themselves until 11 a.m. before the second custodian comes in. It's not no way where we could keep a school safe and keep kids safe and keep a school clean with the shortage of custodians that we have in Miami-Dade public schools. I have addressed that over and over, and I was told they're not going to do any hiring for more custodians. So, and today they had their first meeting on opening back schools today in Miami-Dade County. So they have two different models. They have a virtual model, and that was 51% of the parents that says that they wants to keep their kids at home. They had 49% of the parents want their kids to return to school. So they opening up with two models. And that meeting was today at 3 o'clock. This was the first day that I heard of it. And the second model students will be returning to school, but I think they're gonna start, the first model, virtual, will be August 31st, and the second model would be mid-September, early October. Do I think it's safe? No. Our buses, I don't understand how we will keep social distance on the school bus. I was looking at their models today on the school bus, and they have one child in the seat per every other seat. I don't see if that's going to be safe. Also, I worry about the circulations on the school bus with the air conditioning blowing and the circulations, and I don't think that's good for kids to go back to school right now. And our special need kids, I really don't know what the underlying health condition that specially needs kids have. And also a lot of our school bus drivers deals with a lot of underlying health conditions. So I really don't, I just think this is too fast I think we should think this thing out. And I agree with Senator Cruz that we should at least give it a 6-month virtual school. Our cases are rising in Miami-Dade County really, really fast, and we're losing a lot of employees. We just lost a food service coordinator on last Thursday, and she was only 46 years old. So yes, I don't think it's safe.
Thank you. Next, we have Javier Figueroa, who's a concerned parent from Orange County Public Schools, and we'll talk about issues with Spanish-speaking families having a problem getting the information that they need. Javier?
Yes, hi to everybody, and to the senator. I'm a father, like you said, and I'm a member of organization Palante por Más and Latin arm of Organized Florida. And I'm a patient survivor of cancer. I only have one lung left. In 2008, my right lung was taken because of an abscess of cancer. I've been here since Hurricane Maria, working with the system, the school system with my child. He was diagnosed with autism. And it's so sadly that people like me came in from another country with another language, sometimes have to face things the hard way. Like we're not having the information in our language, like to assimilate and to understand the meaning of the situation. It's very, very bad situation that we're living right now. And for a father with a child with autism, I can imagine my son reopen the school face to face, working with him, living with him, and see, my child can't even take a minute with a mask on his face. He goes like fear, panic fear. If he puts a mask in his face, he will start a panic fear. And I can imagine kids like them in the school with only maybe 3 teachers in the room, every teacher with 4 kids, trying to maintain social distance, something that is so difficult for them because they want to go to school to play. They want to go to school to share with their friends. They want to hug the teachers. How can you imagine doing those things with those special needs kids? It's very insane. Like I don't know. I'm not gonna think it twice in taking my son to school and choosing the virtual mode. But we have to work a little bit more in school to get that information in the language those families can understand the really awareness of the situation. We got to be a little bit conscious and let that family understand in the way they can assimilate it very well.
Okay, thank you. So would either senator like to respond?
I'm happy to.
I'm sorry that you have had medical issues, but I know that you understand how at risk you are if you contract this virus. And I completely agree with you. I can't imagine how you can tell a kindergarten or first grader, second grader, third grader, how in the world can you tell them to social distance? You know, they're like one on top of each other and hugging each other and in the lines, you know, it seems to me like an impossible situation. And in your situation, you just can't take a chance like that. You just really cannot take a chance like that. And I'm sorry, you know, it's the tough situation. Take Javier, for instance. If they tell him, Javier, you have to go back to work, your wife has to go back to work. And you're trying to figure out, well, my child needs an education. Who is going to sit here at home with my child to do online classes, you know? And then I hear parents talk about the online classes and they feel like they're not nearly as effective as the classroom, and the children find too many reasons to be distracted. And, you know, this is all new to all of us, but we've had since March to figure this out. And we're still, you know, parents here in Hillsborough call me constantly that they just don't have answers to their questions, and that that folks at the school board are just not as available to them. I mean, they have questions and they don't have answers, and consequently, these parents are, because they don't have answers and they don't feel safe, they're just figuring out a way to keep their children home. I even heard a situation where someone was talking about they took 10 parents and each child paid, I don't know, $50 a week or something like that. And they were going to hire one teacher to Zoom for their children. And, you know, we don't need a fractured system here. We already have a fractured system because we have a legislature that wants the money to follow the student rather than support the public schools. So, I don't have the answers. I don't know where we go from here. This is all new, but I am disappointed that those that get to make the decisions, which are not Berman and I, because you guys all understand that majority rules, and those in power are, you know, they're quite anxious to expand charter schools rather than support public schools. So, you know, mandating that a public school teacher show up to the brick and mortar classroom is just yet, in my opinion, another excuse to move, you know, to further weaken a union of teachers. So it's really disappointing. It's all the more reason that we have to work harder in the upcoming elections, because we have to affect change in this state. There is such an abuse of power going on right now, guys. You know, you wouldn't believe the stories if we told you. Unfortunately, most people are not as plugged in as you guys are about what goes on in the state legislature. But if you saw half of the shenanigans that went on with your tax dollars, you would be absolutely astounded. And so, Javier, you take care and be careful.
Yeah.
Senator Berman?
I think the issue of having an autistic child also, Javier, it's a really tough thing. And, you know, I know that having in-person teaching is probably the best thing that you can do for him. But right now, given the circumstances, I don't see how we're going to be able to do that. But like Senator Cruz said, this has been going on since March. Schools were closed in March. Why have we not come up with a solution before now? And the answer is it wasn't a priority of theirs, obviously. They didn't care. You know, they weren't worried about it. They just figured they'll, you know, I see a lot of people on the thread are talking about the presidential threat that Trump said, I'm not going to give money to the schools unless you open up. I mean, that's always been their attitude, you know, let everybody just open up. You know, we don't care who gets it, you know, 150,000 people now dead in America, but we're going to open up schools. So it's very disturbing the way we've handled this, the messaging that's gone on from this whole situation with COVID. And the schools are just another part of it, a big part of it, a really significant part. And that's why we're having this discussion. But the whole way that COVID has been handled in society has been horrible, and we haven't addressed the issues for specific things like students with special needs, how we're going to get on buses, how we're going to give lunch. And until we do, we need to be doing things virtually until we can assure that everybody's going to be safe. Thank you.
So next up, we have with us Rebecca Dean, who is the chapter chair for FPSU for the Pinellas County School District. She works in maintenance and pest control. And I think she may have just joined, so she may need a second to get acclimated. But she's going to be speaking to just concerns and issues with reopening with Pinellas County Schools. So Rebecca, you have the floor.
Wow. Okay. My name is Rebecca Dean. I am the chapter chair of Pinellas County Schools. I represent a number of services within the school system, the plant operations, custodians, the maintenance, skilled maintenance workers that are mechanics, plumbers, pest control is, that's where I'm at, carpet maintenance, a variety of work, as well as our bus drivers and our kitchen people. What I'm concerned about is the virus, as everybody is. So I'm very torn on whether schools are open or not. What concerns me most right now is that our schools are delayed open for 2 weeks, which has pushed people's pay out 2 weeks. And this is the teachers as well as our workers, which would be also our part-time workers in the kitchen area. And with our workers that are making a lot less money than our teachers, the effect on them of that 2 weeks pay that isn't really lost, but it is lost because they expected to work, it is going to be really hard on them. And I'm really concerned about that. And with this virus out there, it's not going to be gone in 2 weeks. If we extend it out again, I don't know if our contracts are going to be good at some point, and how are these people going to be made whole when they're not able to file for unemployment during this because they have work expected. So that's where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Okay, next we'll hear from the illustrious Joy Gibson, who's a concerned mother from Tampa. Joy?
Good evening. Thank you again to the senators that are joining us today and listening to our concerns. As was stated, I'm a concerned parent. I'm also an informed parent, and I am very aware that our state has historically not prioritized our residents on a number of levels. Just thinking about the 48, I think we're ranked 48 in the nation for overall healthcare. We're ranked 45 for school funding. And we are at the bottom when it comes to wages in our state. And we can see where we are with the unemployment system that is failing everyone. So knowing this and seeing these type of numbers and seeing the number of cases of COVID, as a parent, it really heightens my concern, because I'm concerned not just for myself, but for others as well. I have two family members who have underlying conditions. I will have a newborn at the start of school that we will be adopting. And I am seeing continuously that with this lack of concern for making families choose between health and quality education and financial well-being, I really feel that we need to address the fact that this continues to further be a detriment to the financial well-being of families. There are a number of families that I know who are having to choose to leave their jobs in order to make sure that their families are safe and homeschool. This is a huge financial hit at a state where the wages are at the very bottom in the nation and cost of living is high. So I'm wondering, how can we make sure that our legislators at least establish a threshold what is the threshold that of deaths, what is the threshold of cases that we are going to say, this is the threshold that we can at least stand on to say it's not safe. To just say that we have to go indefinitely with no threshold in place, I think that's the bare minimum that we're owed as parents. If for some insane reason that we're all recognizing today that we don't see any real numbers, we closed our schools and told a number of kids that they could not have a graduation, they could not have a prom, when the numbers were much lower. And now the numbers are multiplied by, I don't even know, maybe 10 or more. And we're saying that it's safe to go back to school. That is a complete disregard for our lives and our livelihood. And I also feel that at the very bare minimum for parents, because I know a number of second language speakers, so speaking to the concerns of Javier earlier, it is an obligation of our state to be able to provide language accessible information. There are so many people that are hurting and falling through the cracks because they don't have this information that is in a language accessible channels. And we have the radio, we have the television, and I think it is an obligation of our state to be able to speak to all of the residents in Florida, including those who speak a second language. But at a very, just those two minimum things, which are our obligation. What is the criteria for the threshold to say that this is no longer safe? And what is the plan for making sure that this information is language accessible?
Okay. Thank you.
I want to tell you, Joy, that everything you said is so well stated. Much of what you're saying, Senator Berman and I have been saying in the Education Committee relative to where and Joy, you're in Hillsborough County, right?
Yes.
Where we rank in the nation as far as per pupil spending and salaries for teachers and the amount of money that we do not dedicate to education. Being one of the largest states in the country, it's really astounding and disappointing. In relative to speaking for criteria for a threshold, we have asked that question. We're asking those questions with no answers. I've talked to some of the doctors and some of the experts in the healthcare field who talk about, and Senator Berman, you can jump in here anytime, but they speak about, a virus that's under control when you're at a certain point and you don't see cases move upward for X number of weeks. But, the arbitrary, in my opinion, decision to open these schools when we are at the height of infection is insanity. It's just absolute insanity. And we can't get anyone to commit to any answers. And I think on a statewide level, they're trying and understand that this state, the leadership in our state, they find great joy in trying to control local government. They spend so much time on bills that preempt what, allowing the local governments to make their own decisions. Yet now, when the decision is tough and when it may not be politically popular, they want to push the decisions down on to the county level. And, Corcoran was going on about how he was mandating that the schools open and that teachers would lose their positions unless our Hillsborough County health expert finds it to be different. So they want to, they want to make the locals the villains here when they should be taking the lead. There's such a lack of leadership on a statewide level on this, and I'll let Senator Berman speak a little bit.
Yeah, and Joy, what you just said about a threshold, since the coronavirus started, we have had meetings in Palm Beach County with all of our legislative staff and the county and the health department, and we asked them from the very beginning when we started opening up the county, we kept saying, what's the threshold that you need to move back? You know, when you hit what number, are you going to move back? And they never gave us an answer. We asked it for weeks. And the reason is because they don't want to move back. So we're probably not going to hear an answer on your question. But I agree with you. We need a threshold. If they're going to open, there should be a threshold. I don't think we should be opening. I think we need to do everything virtual. I see somebody put a call to action, and I love it on here. Distance learning until it's safe to reopen, maintain local control. Those are all great things for call to action, and that's what we're gonna need to keep saying. But the idea of a threshold, if they do open, we need to look at it. I mean, and that's what I talked about Israel. They opened and they hit the threshold and they had to pull everything back. They had a threshold. And we know, you know, if they want to use that 5% number that we keep hearing about, that only 5% of the people who are being tested are testing positive, then that's fine. Use that number. Right now, the number's 11% in the state. So we're far from 5%. We're very far from that number right now. But at least give us a number and tell us, you know, if we get to over 5% again, we have to close the schools down. And I like your idea, and it's something we're going to continue to advocate. So thank you for bringing that up.
Okay.
We as Senate Democrats held a press conference, and we asked for a step back. We've been very concerned about this state opening, and we asked for a step back to safety and had absolutely no response from our requests.
Okay, so next up we will have Megan Bell, who's a teacher and mother in Palm Beach County School District. So Ms. Bell.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here and be surrounded by all these brilliant, amazing people. So yeah, I'm a teacher and a mom, and I was, just like everyone else, very surprised in March when we started our distance learning. We were unprepared. We didn't have materials at our home. None of my children had ever used Google Classroom before. I teach second grade. And so it was a really steep learning curve for all of us. March and April were majorly crisis management. But you know I have been spending this entire summer thinking about how I'm going to distance teach differently when school resumes at the end of August. I've been doing trainings, I've been reading about it, I've been planning. So I just want, you know, to let you know, Joy, and the other parents on the call, that the teachers are in a much different place for distance learning at this point. So I'm thankful that you guys are willing to give it another shot with us, because it is absolutely the only safe option. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And also, you know, we have been focusing a lot about equity at my school. And this is something that I'm in Palm Beach County that we've been talking a lot about as a district as well, because a lot of our students did not have access to the internet, or they didn't have reliable access to the internet. We had one device per family, which sounds like a lot, but it prevented us as teachers from doing live lessons, because we could only have our students live for 30 minutes a day, because we had to share the whole school day with each grade. So little brother could be on the computer, and then you had to get off because now big brother needs the computer. So going forward in this next year, each student in our school is going to have their own device district-wide. So we're planning on doing a lot more live teaching, which will be way better for everyone, and a lot more fun. I've got a record player at my house. I'm planning on playing records for my kids. We're gonna gamify everything. It's gonna be a lot better. And you know, this fight about reopening here in Palm Beach County got pretty ugly. A lot of mean stuff was said back and forth between the parents and the teachers. And it showed me that our parents have a lot of needs that have been being met through our school buildings. As teachers, as educators, as cafeteria workers and custodial workers and bus drivers, we were willing to go out of pocket. We were willing to get multiple jobs. We were willing to do everything we possibly could to provide services for our students, because we knew that they weren't getting them anywhere else. They weren't getting mental health counseling. They weren't getting social emotional learning. They weren't getting speech and language. They weren't getting occupational therapy. So we were willing to like move the moon if we needed to make it happen. And now that we don't have the building to facilitate that, the parents and the students, they still need these services. So we need to come together as a community and find a way for our families to get access to the services that they need without having it in that building, because we just can't bring 1,000 people into the building every day right now. It's just not safe. So that's something that we've been talking about a lot in my community, about how can we get these services to these families outside of that. And I just want to end it with some good news. So the good news is we're only 6 to 8 weeks away from getting COVID completely under control in Florida. And the bad news is that we've always been only 6 to 8 weeks away from getting COVID completely under control in Florida. And if we want to get our children back in school with our teachers where they belong, and if we as teachers want to get out from behind our desks and get back with our kids, we have to shut back down again. And we have to make sure that when we shut down this time, we provide services and financial support to our families so we can safely stay home and let this virus run its course. If we don't move around, the virus doesn't move around. So we are so close to being able to eliminate this virus in Florida. We just have to really come together and try, and we have to push for a shutdown so that we can do that.
I think the really good news is that we have people like you, Megan, and all the people who are on the call who are really concerned and doing the work. I mean, the fact that you've spent this time learning how you're going to distance to learn and teach your students, I applaud you for doing that. I applaud all of you on the phone on this call today for all the work that you're doing. The fact that you're spending your free time being on this call because this all matters to you. So we, you know, there are some bright spots in this, and that's that every one of us is trying to do the best. I agree with you on shutting down. Unfortunately, I don't see it happening so quickly. And it's like the Band-Aid issue, you know. I joke about it as the marshmallow test. You know, Florida, you know, a parent puts the marshmallows out, walks out of the room and says to the kids, I'll give you twice as many if you don't eat them. Well, Florida ate the marshmallows, and we're not willing to not eat them and to step back, and we're still not willing. And so we're going to be until we do that, we're going to be in this situation repeatedly, and people need to recognize that. But thank you for everything. I'm glad you're in Palm Beach County. Woo. And yeah, and you know, we're going to keep doing everything we can to protect all the people on the call and all the children in the state.
Okay. Next up, we have Jenny Figueroa, who's a grandmother with children, with grandkids that go to Hillsborough County School District. So Jenny.
Hello, everyone. I'm a grandmother, but I did adopt 3 of them, but they still call me grandma.
Yeah.
So I've got my concerns. We've got 4 who will be going to elementary school. 2 of them are boys, and I think it's a boy thing. Once you put the mask on, I can't breathe. They're, you know, going crazy. I mean, they can't even keep their mask on for more than 30 seconds, right? So I know, and I'm not going to expect them to keep their mask on 6 to 8 hours a day. I know they can't even keep a jacket on for 5 minutes, right? When you're at school. And as far as social distance, when it comes to either the bus or in classrooms, like I don't see that happening either. And then if they say that the virus stays in the air, right? What about the AC vent and the circulation? Like it doesn't matter how much social distance you're all breathing the same air. So eventually you're going to be breathing coronavirus. I volunteer over 200 hours last year. And I know that one teacher with 20 kids while teaching cannot see that a child is cleaning his snot, right? Or he's getting sick, or, you know, I'm like, okay, dab, when you cough, don't cough in your hand. Dab, right? Let's make it fun. Go wash your hands. You know, there's no hand sanitizer. We're asked all the time to bring hand sanitizers, to bring baby wipes. to bring soap to the class. So I just don't see how this is going to work. I don't see how, I know there's no funding to hire more custodians or hire more folks to disinfect. So how are they going to? And then when I see the guidelines says when possible, we know darn well that what that means is that it's not possible, right? So they're not going to reinforce it, but because social distance when possible, right? Disinfect when possible, wear a mask when possible. What does that mean? That it's not going to be enforced, and then therefore our children are going to be, you know, in harm's way for myself. So I'm not going to send any of my grandchildren to school. I know I have asthma myself. My grandson, he gets pneumonia, respiratory issues, bronchitis very easily. So that's my concern. So that what if I get sick and then I give it to him, or vice versa, and I'm a single parent here with 3 kids. If I get COVID, like who's going to take care of my children, of my grandkids? And again, and now when you say kids don't get coronavirus, I have my grandmother-in-law is in the hospital right now fighting for her life with coronavirus. Also, everyone in that household, a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old, also have coronavirus in that household. And I believe it's the kids who brought it in because they're going back and forth to the parents, and the older adults don't go anywhere. So the myth about kids not spreading it or not carrying it, this is a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. Like, I don't believe it. When it comes to e-learning, it was very hard because it's something that we didn't use. Teachers were also learning it, but I would say that, you know, I was very grateful for my teachers for being there. You know, if I had to call them or send messages, they always responded. So what I would like to see as far as virtual, because that's the only way we're going to be going back to school, is to having, you know, live Zoom lessons and teaching live, right? And then those teachers who sees the kids that are struggling to maybe later on in the day have small groups with those who need the extra help to be able to not let them fall behind. I wanted to talk a little bit about Javier when he was talking about parents, right? In our area, I live in Waimama, Ruskin area. There's a lot of monolingual parents, but they're not even speaking Spanish. They speak different dialects, right? So their children are the only ones that speak English. So if you're not even giving these parents what they need, and let's say, yes, you give them a laptop, the child doesn't know how to use it. They're in elementary. So how is the parent going to show the child or be able to help the child when it comes to learning, right? There's no communication. And again, one laptop for 3 or 4 kids. And then the laptops, they were having trouble connecting. I know some of them use tablets. And when we were doing Zoom, because I would be part of the Zooms, the tablets didn't have sound, right? So how are the kids able to participate in the Zoom? And the teacher's asking them, they're like, oh, well, you have that tablet that doesn't have sound. Okay, and that was the majority of the kids that were on the Zoom lessons. As far as I know Spectrum, there were a lot of people that could not afford or had their Wi-Fi or their internet turned off. And the school district said that Spectrum was gonna be helping. But the issue with that is if you already had an overdue bill and you did not pay, you could not get that turned down. So how was the child supposed to be able to connect and do? So I know that in Hillsborough County, over 4,000 students did not connect, not one time, to e-learning. So we think we need to do a little better with these parents and these children who already fall behind, right? Mainly in our Black and Brown communities. And how is it that we're going to be able to help and uplift them so they can get the education that they need? I know I've said a lot, but.
Yeah, you did, but you do always, and you're always great. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you for that. And I want you to know that you're a hero for raising your grandchildren. It's not easy once you've already raised your own. So God bless you for that. I want to thank everyone for allowing us to hear what you had to say. Senator Berman and I are late for our next meeting, so we're going to sign off now. But thank you, Alfonso, for everything. We appreciate all the work and the way that you bring folks together. So
Well, we have 2 more speakers, so we're going to let you guys go, but we do expect that you're going to look at the end of this Facebook Live for our 2 fabulous closing speakers, because they're going to ask you some strong questions, and we want to be able to give responses to them.
Okay, Alfonso.
Sounds great. Thank
Take
you
care.
all.
Bye.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you for joining us. And next up, we have Alexander Ingram, who's a teacher with the Ball County Schools.
Okay, so now that the top brass is gone, I'm going to speak directly to everyone. So I am an organizer with Florida for a Safe Return to School, Florida's for a Safe Return to Campus. I'll drop that link here in the chat for everyone. Feel free to join us. We are organizing for collective action to make sure that we only have a safe return to campus, because right now we do not have a safe return to campus. I am also a 12th grade AP Government, AP Microeconomics, and 7th grade Civics teacher at Darnell Cookman Middle High School. So there are certain words as a employee of the state of Florida that I'm not allowed to advocate for, okay? But I can say words like we can take collective action, and I will not step foot in a classroom that breaks my #1 rule, which is safety first. Safety first has always been my #1 rule in the classroom. So I would encourage you guys to reach out to that Facebook group. If you do not have a Duval County, we have a Duval County one. If you don't have a county version of yours, I recommend starting one. You just became the new admin. Second, thank you guys so much for bringing up all these like incredibly important topics. Here in DCPS and Duval County Public Schools, the bus drivers are not state employees, so they can negotiate with the Teamsters and use the Teamsters to help out and help organize. So if you're not a member of the Teamsters, those bus drivers, I highly recommend joining that union. And I know as a teacher, I'd be more than happy to help cover donate to a solidarity fund if you guys decide to withhold your labor, right? It's hard to get to school without any bus drivers, okay? So I'll just say that, I'll plant that seed, let you guys reach out to your bus driver friends, and let me know if there's anything else that you need with that. The next piece I wanted to point out is that there's a serious lack of reliable data, and I'd actually hoped to ask the senators about this, but right now we have a lot of cases of COVID-19, but we also unusually have about 3 times higher in terms of the pneumonia deaths than we normally would this time of year. So I think a lot of the data is currently getting buried in other categorization of death, which is incredibly important to keep in mind that it's actually probably worse than what we're hearing. And know that, when you're at a 15% test positive rate, that means you are not getting as many tests as it should be. We're currently under testing. They talk about testing students if they come back to school, but in reality, we have no capacity to test a child that parent denies a test, right? So as a teacher, I can say, "Ooh, boy, Johnny, your forehead sure does feel hot." Can't make Johnny take a COVID test. So that's a real important point. Also, bus drivers, I just want to point this out. State law requires you to pick up a child at a bus stop. You cannot leave that child at the bus stop, even if they refuse to wear a mask. And I would really push your county officials to say, hey, if Johnny's not wearing a mask, do I still have to pick him up? State law says so. And to find a way to address that, because that seems like a big risk to yourself. It's one thing for you to put yourself in harm's way as a bus driver every single day transporting children, right? I commend you for that difficult job. It's another thing to then take that danger home to your family, as one of the speakers previously spoke about having only one lung. That's a serious health concern, and you guys shouldn't be put in that position at all. The last thing I wanted to do is point out that we've had a failure of leadership at every level of government. From Washington, D.C., there's still the HEROES Act, which is sitting in the Senate. So I'd encourage you to call our 2 Republican senators that have a whole lot of power on that issue and ask them to pass the HEROES Act. The version that was passed in the House, I don't want the garbage GOP one. I would also encourage you to reach out to your school board and start attending those school board meetings and start being loud at those school board meetings. We've held several protests where we have gone from the school board meeting to schools and then march to the graveyard, because that's currently where Duval County is sending us, is to the graveyard. And people have been, kind of criticizing us for that's really dark. It's not, it's the reality. I have over 2,000 students in my building. Based on the COVID mortality rate, 7 of them will die. Right, so those are the stakes that we're dealing with, right? And right now we have a governor who won't even put in a mask mandate. Here in Duval County, we got a mask mandate without any teeth about a month ago, and it was like Mayor Curry showed up to a baby shower with condoms, right? It was like too little, too late, bud. So I would start pushing your local officials for a mask mandate and make sure those mask mandates are in school and tied to the code of conduct. Otherwise, you're just politely asking them to put on a mask, and Johnny may just not be feeling it. And if it's not safe to return, don't. That's all I got.
Thank you, Alex. And so lastly, we have someone who is known in some circles as the closer. She's been given the ball in big game situations. It's Angela Luckett from St. Pete College. So Angela, why don't you speak to us? What's on your mind?
Good evening, everyone. I am in the higher ed campaign, so I am an adjunct professor. And for those of you who don't know what that means, I'm a part-time professor at St. Petersburg College. So I'm very interested in this issue on a number of levels. The first level I'm interested in as a parent of a student in Pinellas County schools. I have a high school student in my house. Who at first wanted to go back to school because she has a problem with distance learning or learning on a computer. However, since she knows she lives in the house with her mom, her stepdad, and her grandma, who are all over 50, we all have underlying health conditions, she chooses not to put us in danger, so she has to struggle to do education online. And I think it's a terrible idea that we send kids back to school not only because of their health, but because of the health of the people they come back to. Now, on the higher ed level for adjunct professors, our problem is we're not state employees. Our problem is we don't get health care. Our problem is we're not paid well, so many of us don't have medical care. Our problem is that many of us have underlying health problems and are in that over 50 bracket. So we are, we'll be putting ourselves in danger if we go back to campus. To give the benefit of the doubt for my college, we do have online classes, but this semester I only have 1 class online, whereas last semester I had 4 face-to-face courses. I've been thinking this whole time about how to make my class a little more interactive, and like Megan said, to gamify it a little bit so that my students will feel a little more comfortable with the learning environment. And yet I would love to be back in the classroom. However, I'm not going back if it means that one of my students could die, or I could die, or someone in my household could die. I don't want to be the person who brings home stuff to my family. So what I want to ask the 2 senators, Senators Cruz and Berman, is how are they going to fight harder for the education budget in this term and in the next term to come? How are they going to fight for us as parents of students in public schools? How are they going to fight for us as union employees or employees who are seeking to form unions to better protect ourselves from a system that really doesn't care about us? So those are my questions. And what I want to say to each and every person on this call, the only way we can get what we want is to fight. But we got to know how to fight. We've got to fight hard. We got to fight with the pen, with the voice, and every other way that we can fight. We've got to go to school board meetings. We've got to get on these county commission meetings. We have to let these people know that we pay their salaries, and we deserve better representation, and our children deserve more. So I'm ending this with this. What are you going to do for us? What have you done for us lately? And what are you going to do for us in the future? I'm done, Alfonso. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Reverend. Deeply appreciate that. So everyone, Tomorrow, please call Governor DeSantis at 850-613-0184 and tell him to put people first, save our school, adequately fund education, and no reopening until it's safe to do so, and ensure job stability of school district workers and higher education institutions working to include and who are working to educate our children, and that includes adjunct faculty. And with that, for tonight, everyone, we're going to close. So everyone, have a good night.